Good morning. For our chalice lighting this morning, we have some special words. Happy birthday, happy 200th birthday. These words are from Greta W. Crosby, our minister in 1960, the first woman minister ever in this congregation. Her words this morning, I'll repeat. It is an honor to share in your bicentennial celebration. Even at age 94, my heart holds warm gratitude for your church for embracing progressive ideals. In the 1950s, I felt called to become a Unitarian minister amid much resistance to the idea of women in the pulpit. In June 1959, I graduated from Meadville Theological School, and while most of the men in my class were soon offered their first pulpits, it took me several more months to become settled at a church. Fortunately, in the winter of 1959, I was called to this church when it was called Church of the Reconciliation. Then my ordination as parish minister followed in 1960. The congregation calling a woman minister in that era was a significant milestone, marking a place in history in this religious community. I was so appreciative of the courage of this decision. It was the first real confirmation that answered my calling, and my subsequent years of perseverance were worthwhile. I felt well supported in my ministry here. I would have preferred to stay longer had it not been for my husband being transferred to Virginia in June of 1961. I still cherish fond memories of the people of the church and of the beautiful city of Utica, especially the vivid fall foliage and gigantic snowfalls. Now in 2025, I am delighted to share in your bicentennial celebration. What a wonderful accomplishment to have created and maintained a liberal religious community for over 2 centuries. Please know that I am with you in spirit in your joyous celebration.
Sally Carmen said, be sure and keep the tissue box in the picture. So I did. Sally Carmen actually remembers Greta.
For the ancient Greeks, time was not a straightforward concept. For them, time could take on different forms and textures. It could shrink or expand, move in a linear fashion, or circle around and around. They had different names for these different experiences of time. Chronos was for measuring the passing of time, minutes, hours, days, weeks. Chronos helps you plan and pace your day, helps you understand how long it will take to get from here to there, a practical, measurable form of time. Another was called Kairos, and Kairos is less easy to measure. Kairos pauses linear time long enough for us to feel or understand something important. Epiphanies, breakthroughs, growth, discovery are all measured in Kairos. And there was Aeon. Aeon was for describing cosmic time, eternity, vaster than months or years or individual epiphanies can contain, a more sacred plane of existence. Aeon holds all lifetimes, stretching back before the gods and continuing after. From the vast expanse of Ion, each life flows into all others. Even if we can't always understand the meaning of our lives up close while in the midst of living the minutes and hours of it, from the vantage of Aeon, everything we do fits into a larger design, a sacred, eternal wholeness. And one of the things that makes church sacred is that it's a rare place where all three forms of time flow together and meet. We run on linear chronological time, measuring our meetings in hours, setting deadlines for raising money, and noting the length of the sermon. But we step outside of linear time as well to feel or understand something important that shapes how we are living and who we're becoming. And we are here, we attend church because, like generations before us, we are spiritual seekers, and we long to feel our way toward that eternal, timeless wholeness that holds us all. For years, journalist Oliver Burkeman wrote about productivity. How to get more out of your minutes and hours, how to get things done in a shorter amount of time, tips that are genuinely useful for juggling the many demands of our lives. He was hoping to make it all feel more manageable. But little by little, thinking about how to spend one's minutes and hours most efficiently, Burkeman became increasingly disillusioned with productivity culture. He started to notice that the faster he answered emails, the more emails he had in his inbox to answer the next day. The faster he got things done at work, the more they gave him to do. So when Burkeman stopped being so productive, when he held still for a moment and let his own internal unrest have space to be felt and heard, he realized that what he had wanted really was a way to help people get things done faster so that they could finally get to the parts of living that are actually meaningful. But he noticed that it didn't work like that in his own life. If he got the laundry folded and the dishes cleaned and put away, but he hadn't organized the pantry yet, or cleaned up that spot on the floor, or fixed the wiggly stair on the back porch, he'd never get to those more meaningful things. Always in the back of his mind, he was telling himself, yes, I just need to get these other things done, and then finally, that's when I'll start living my one wild and precious life. I'll finally listen to all that longing that stays buried underneath the busyness. And then it hit Oliver Burkeman. It never happens. As he put it, you never clear the deck. Your to-do list is never done. The day never comes when the conditions are just right to live a meaningful life, to do what is inconvenient and what demands something less automatic of you. Paying all this attention to tasks, to being productive, adds up. The way Burkeman puts it, Your experience of being alive is nothing more than the sum of everything to which you pay attention. Your experience of being alive is nothing more than the sum of everything to which you pay attention. At the end of your life, he says, looking back, whatever you gave your attention to from moment to moment is simply what your life will have been. When I was 3 years old, my parents decided to start attending a small Unitarian Universalist congregation where we lived in rural South Carolina. And over the years, our church became its own magical world to me. Whenever I walked in on Sunday morning, it always felt like I had joined an experience that was already in motion. The smell of fair trade coffee, the movement of volunteers pulling final touches together, adding more coloring pages in the nursery or unloading the dishwasher in the kitchen, tidying the stack of orders of services outside the sanctuary. The many hands that kept the energy of church flowing through long weeks and musty hallways. And their movement was all set against the background sounds of people connecting with one another, catching up in quick, easy flowing syllables or seeking comfort in soft murmurs, sudden booming bursts of laughter, voices overlapping in safe, familiar music that was the same each week and different too. I remember sermons given by members of my congregation who spoke about important things, big and small. They told their stories and shared lessons they had learned while discovering themselves and exploring the world. And I remember the adults of my congregation wore black and sang songs by candlelight when the Iraq War started. They helped organize the local food bank. They showed up to demonstrations and vigils supporting immigrant rights and women's rights in our small conservative town. And I was part of their lives, and they were part of mine. I helped hold a small corner of whatever they were carrying, and they did the same for me. In their presence, I felt how my life flowed into all other lives, and all lives flowed into mine. My parents brought me each week because they wanted me to have access to this special kind of place, to understand its rhythms and customs, because to have access to church is to have access to another dimension of human experience. A dimension that is very different from school or work. At church, you aren't here to earn something like a degree. You aren't here to produce something to make a profit. We go to church to be part of a process, a journey with other people, one that started before we were born and will continue after we die. A journey that we go on not in hope of a reward, but for its own sake. Church is where we practice what it looks like to have a meaningful life. Church is where we come to pay attention to what matters. Not running from our doubts or discomfort, but being present with our longing and our unrest long enough that it can teach us something. Not expecting community to be easy or every moment of togetherness to even be enjoyable, but showing up and participating in order to create a larger belonging that can hold anyone and everyone. Not closing ourselves off to the suffering of others, but staying present with their humanity. Paying attention to what matters. 200 years ago, a group of people decided to gather in Utica, New York, because they agreed on the radical idea that no one goes to hell. And along the way, as they continued to meet, they became one another's community, gathering to live life together, to remember again and again that they were not alone in their questions or worries or hopes or commitments. The members of this congregation for over 2 centuries have shown up week after week to move that initial spark forward and keep the flame going. And each generation seems to have proven to the next that it is worthwhile to gather in this way, to take time out of busy lives to slow down and pay attention to what matters, to remember the simple peace that kindness and a commitment to something bigger than yourself can bring. To serve, argue, organize, learn, write cards, and bring food when someone breaks a bone or loses someone they love. Oliver Berkman's epiphany was that our experience of being alive is nothing more than the sum of everything we pay attention to. And individually, it is very hard to spend the majority of our time paying attention to what matters, paying attention enough to feel what we're feeling and make sense of our experiences, paying attention enough to the people we care about, paying attention enough to hold people with power accountable. It's incredibly hard as an individual to spend the majority of our time paying attention to meaningful things. The laundry folding, the coughs and the colds, remembering to get the oil changed, going to the dentist, needing to work for a living. There's a lot of noise to sift through. But when we come together here, we spend the majority of our minutes and hours paying attention to meaningful things. We bring to church the best of what we have left after a busy week to share with one another. It's hard as individuals to spend most of our time paying attention to what matters. But at church, all the scraps of the best parts of ourselves are trying and trying again, get stitched together into something beautiful and whole that outlives us. All of you, the 8th generation to inherit this community, you are now the weavers of the cloth. You carry forward what the lives of people 200 years ago set in motion. And it may sound like a lot of pressure, but all you have to do is keep coming together to pay attention to what matters one Sunday at a time, so that you can do for others what those who came before you did for you, and give the gift of community, shelter for the journey for those yet to come. Blessed be. Amen.